Teacups. This is the interview with Kieran Leonard, and this time things are slightly different.
Because you know when you're talking to someone and you're having a blast, you just don't want it to be over, do you?
That's why, beside the regular interview, we've met with Kieran a few days later to have a second take on his answers.
My name is Kieran Leonard.
Kieran has made a name for himself during the last year, and his single has just been released last December.
We asked him how this all was achieved, if there's a secret to go beyond the usual rules of the music industry, and if so, why isn't anyone following?
I think that is because well, I've been playing for about 18 months, and yeah, I've only just now decided to put this song out, which was I was kind of waiting for the appropriate song at the appropriate time. And also, like, I've been on quite a few different paths in the last 18 months musically. I've tried doing different things, and it's a very strange time for the music industry, whatever the music industry is. I don't think anybody knows what the music industry is. I haven't seen it recently, but I'm informed there is such a thing as a music industry. I think they keep it in a warehouse in the Nevada desert, and like 6 or 7 people are invited each year to come and see the music industry, and then they keep it locked away for the rest of the time. But anyway, I did that by sort of turning up in places like the Boogaloo and places, other bars and whatnot, and playing songs and finding audiences, and I had a lot of support from other musicians, people like Billy Bragg, the Libertines, people like that. Things aren't quite the same way that they used to be in terms of in every conduit of the media. Because of the internet, you can now access a huge number of people. Everyone knows this. It's kind of everyone knows that you can do this nowadays. And I just kind of persistently kept writing songs and playing them to people, and then people started sharing them with their friends and sharing them with their friends, and that's really how things work nowadays. There isn't such a necessity to have kind of $1 million pluggers and like the support of a massive label to do those. In fact, that's like, it's like Jurassic Park. It doesn't exist anymore. Although Jurassic Park does exist. But
The secret is connecting on a sort of grassroots level, in a sense, like endeavouring to do the shows that aren't necessarily featured in the enemy, things that are commonplace in people's sort of lexicon of where good gigs should be, and to do things where you think people might turn up and have a good time, and really just trying to offer people an experience in a room, wherever the room is, how big or small it is, and turning up and playing shows, because I think people get a bit lost in the idea that music has to happen at an O2 sponsored venue, and it doesn't. You know, it just doesn't have to happen that way. And I really endeavoured to make sure that that wasn't the only kind of place I was playing. So I played bars, I played barns, I played kitchens, I played, you know, and it's just, you know, it works because you get to actually interact with people and speak and have conversations with people, and given kind of the stuff that I write about, that's really, really important, because a lot of what I'm writing about are things that I want answers for and speak. And you know, when you play a smaller gig in a smaller room, you finish and then there's none of that like backstage, front of stage nonsense. You put your guitar down and go to the bar and have a pint, and you speak to somebody and you say, well, what do you think about that? Or what did you make of that? Or what do you think that song's about? I love that, really.
And what about music and ethics?
Was Baudelaire right or wrong stating that art is prostitution?
Is it unethical to be signed to a major label? Well, I suppose so, because not many people know that Universal Records also own a share in a nuclear waste like reprocessing plant. Not many people know that. But anyway, I don't think that's an ethical thing, really. I think it's more an artistic thing whereby you're inevitably going to lose control of your image, to an extent your sound, to the kind of maybe the kind of songs you're allowed to write and put out on a mainstream basis. So yeah, but a lot of really important musicians and songwriters with incredible amounts of integrity have been on major labels. I don't think being on a major label means you're selling out. In fact, isn't there an imperative artistically to try and want to get your music to the largest number of people possible? And in that sense, who cares? I'm really glad that Bob Dylan signed to Columbia, because it meant that the whole world got to listen to him because he was on a major label. But there are cases for it, and I know what you mean with the Charles Baudelaire quote, but I just kind of think, well, it's going down, so it doesn't really matter either way. But as far as I'm concerned, what would I do if a major label came knocking? I would ask for, I would sign exclusively to Walt Disney for $200 million.
Music and poetry then?
Are they related or how are they different?
Well, obviously, the kind of music that I make at the moment and the music that I enjoy certainly is poetical in nature. Certainly the words usually come first, but then words without a melody, just poetry, and you put melody, then you have a song, and a song is sometimes more powerful than a poem because it's more universally accessible. I mean, that's why people sing hymns in church, you know, it makes it easier for everyone to get involved, not just listen to the priest. But there's a school of thought that a lyric just is a throwaway thing that's attached to a piece of music that just kind of follows a tune. But I write with an intention first, I write the words with an intention first, and then the music is just the medium in itself to allow the music, to allow the message to be transmitted to the most number of people. It'd be quite hard to book a gig in Brixton and turn up and read 24 really good poems at them. But you know, people will turn up and fill the O2 to hear Bob Dylan essentially do the same thing, but with a backbeat, you know.
I have thought about this since I spoke, and there's a tautology in your question there. It's tautological because music and poetry have existed side by side since there's no who could put their finger on which came first. I don't know. So they have always existed, and they just do slightly different things.
Kieran is extremely active in artistically prolific environments and charities.
So we asked him about the synergies that go on in such circumstances.
Okay, well, Little Episodes is a great charity because it's kind of one of the most pragmatic mental health charities that I've come across in terms of there's no stigmatisation, there's no sort of, or it really ain't a charity in essence. It's not a charity for people with mental health. It's like a kind of an activist group for people who are recovering or have had, as many people have and will experience their lives, little episodes of where their life has gone off the rails for one reason or another, and it's trying to avoid that stigmatisation. But anyway, the point about that is you meet a lot of people from so many different walks of life in a thing like Little Episodes because mental illness isn't restricted to the creative fields or maybe, the banking sector, although saying that, or whatever. So you meet people from all different walks of life who have been brought together by this great thing. Some of them are writing poetry, some of them are writing songs, some of them are writing plays, some of them are actors, some of them are potters and weavers, some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. None of them are carpenters' wives as far as I know.
I spend a lot of time having conversations with people, and the conversations tend to go along the line of how are you good, and what you're doing, yeah, that's good, I'm not really sure, I'm not sure either, is that good, I'm not sure either, and like these kind of completely confused, ambivalent and everyone's a little bit unsure of themselves, and I kind of realised that what I was doing before, when you probably saw me, I was playing a lot of blues, very loud music, like rock and roll music. I wanted to open up a dialogue with a broader audience basically, and by stripping it back to my voice and a guitar and a beat, which is what I'm doing now, it allows a bit of dialogue. It feels like it's opening the room up to a dialogue. Whereas before it was kind of like what I was doing before was a statement of discontent, whereas now it's kind of like, oh, I'm feeling this way too, how are you feeling? And maybe like a little bit of a communion taking place.
Next we asked him what was it like to work with a very close friend.
Considering that in his case we're talking about Carl Barrett.
Yeah, I've done 2 tours with him. When you're touring with somebody, you get really, really intimate and familiar with their music in a sense because you're doing it every single night and you see them all day before they go on stage and all the time after, and all you have to do is talk about the shows, and so you get to understand the warp and weft of their music incredibly. And also he's a really great friend, a really important part of my life, and he had a whole bunch of really quite odd ideas, when I say literally odd ideas about what we could do with these songs that he'd heard night after night, and the opportunity came up to have some studio time and went in to record them. But I'm sure one or two of them will appear on the album as produced by him. So yeah, but it was really fun working with him, and quite a good gear change for our relationship when you go from just being sort of really good friends with somebody and talking lots to actually getting into studio and to do something properly.
Kieran has been playing repeatedly around London.
So we asked him, why is that so? Is it to connect to a deeper level to a loyal audience rather than to simply expand it?
Plus, this is when we dig deeper into his obsession with Caravaggio.
I had a residency in a bar down the road for basically a year, where I played every single Sunday for a year. And the intention behind that was twofold. In the first instance, it was to do exactly that, to try and get people to reconnect with music on a completely, like, there wasn't even a stage in this place. It was, I stood up in like at the corner and played, and would play pretty much the same 20 or 25 songs every week, and people started coming, and more people started coming, and it had a kind of thing where people would just like come, to use a weird word, like a word you don't often associate with music, kind of religious coming, just because they wanted to be part of something and see their friends. And it wasn't just about me playing, it was about, you know, committing to something outside of the mainstream, I guess. The other reason I did it was because I have this appreciation for proper songwriters as of days of yore, people like Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie and Townes Van Zandt and people of that calibre who would spend years and years and years playing and going round the same bunch of bars to hone their craft. And it's like, that's forgotten about nowadays, that idea that people had to spend, the reason why Bob Dylan wrote so many of his songs was he spent years and years playing so many sets and whatnot to learn how you do everything about that so carefully. Like, if you wanted to be a canoe maker overnight, you wouldn't just suddenly like grab a piece of wood and make your first canoe, would you? You'd have to practice and practice, and you'd have to make a bunch of really shit canoes, wouldn't you? And you'd have to make loads of. I don't know why I'm using canoes as the example here. There is an association between canoes and songwriting somewhere. Sometimes they both hold water. Sometimes they both sink.
I think because he kind of lived. He's not unique in any sense, because there have been many artists like him, but what is unique about him is like he had this incredibly peripatetic lifestyle whereby he would, like, I mean, he died over a duel about losing a game of tennis. That's why I like him so much. Like, how like he got stabbed because he wouldn't stand losing at tennis. And that thing of like being run out of the city and like just like taking the, just like he did anything to support his art, and that's what I really like about him. He's a bit like a pirate, like in that respect. Like he would oblige people holding the purse strings as long as it kind of allowed him to do his work. And as soon as their ideas differentiated from his anyway, he'd just go off and do his own thing.
This came out rather unexpectedly.
Byron or Keats?
I would definitely stand on Keats being the better poet, but well, inevitably, because he wrote better poems, far better poems. And second, but then the interesting thing is, in terms of romantic poets, one of the most important things about romantic poetry was the lives informed the work and the content of the work, and Byron obviously had the far more romantic life. So, who's to say, in terms of the poetry, living the poetry, Byron certainly did. Like, some of the stories about what he got up to, like, you know, starting insurrections and marrying people's wives and all that sort of stuff. It's amazing, amazing stuff. But Keats could put one word after the other in a slightly more poetic fashion than Byron, I think. But yeah, both. I'd have them both on my team if I could pick them.
We hope you've enjoyed this interview and its unusual twist.
And now stay tuned to Gin In Teacups, because we have so many more sessions coming up. And until then, bye!